In historical warfare, the math usually dictates the outcome. Massive, entrenched empires with superior numbers crush disorganized bands of exiles. Take a look at this chart detailing the military forces in the Mahabharata. It shows a severe mismatch. The sprawling Kaurava army commands 11 Akshalfinis, ancient military divisions, against the exiled Pandavas, who barely scrape together 7. The Ramayana presents the exact same numerical problem. You have the heavily fortified, continent-spanning dynasty of Lanka standing against a small band of wandering brothers led by Rama. By all conventional metrics, both royal factions should have been wiped off the map. Instead, the larger empires suffer total structural failure, and the outgunned exiles secure absolute victory. While both sides wielded world-shattering divine weapons, the presence of these tools on both sides of the line didn't preserve the status quo. That raises a structural question. What hidden flaw caused the ancient world's most heavily armed empires to collapse from within? To find out, we must look at these royal families not as characters in a story, but as competing systems of structural engineering. Think of them as operating protocols. Ecosystems operate as centralized networks with swollen core hubs, stretching connections until they snap. Dharma networks reorganize into stable, load-bearing matrices, distributing weight evenly. In Hindu mythology, the faction that wins the war isn't decided by who hits the hardest. It's decided by the systemic integrity of the protocol they run on. This schematic profiles Lanka's dynasty. Look at Ravana, the scholar king in the center. His core driver is the ideal of ego. He centralizes all processing power around his personal glory. That extreme centralization immediately fractures his support network. His brother Kumbhakarna represents compromised motivation. He fights out of familial duty, but his engagement is so low he spends most of the conflict asleep. We see a similar flaw in the Mahabharata. This profile of the Kaurava faction highlights Duryodhana's core alignment, driven entirely by unchecked, centralized ambition for absolute power. Because the Kaurava system lacks a foundation of merit, it struggles to maintain control. The system introduces algorithmic manipulation, rigging the game of dice, just to keep opponents suppressed and allies in line. Eco-driven networks lack a solid core. They have to expend immense energy on constant manipulation and forced compliance just to prevent their own gravitational collapse. Now look at the counter-protocol run by Rama's siblings. On the right side of this chart, their core philosophy is defined explicitly as sacrifice over ambition. This provides a massive mechanical advantage. When a legally entitled successor like Bharata voluntarily refuses the throne, it removes the primary source of internal friction. No competing claims, and zero resources wasted on civil war. This chart illustrates how the Pandavas' smaller, unified system handles resources much more efficiently than a bloated empire. Instead of managing a chaotic network of 100 competing brothers, the Pandavas operate as a highly specialized 5-node unit. Yudhishthira serves as the moral compass, Arjuna acts as the tactical strike force, and every brother fulfills a precise structural role without overlapping. By removing personal ambition and locking into specialized supportive roles, these groups stop functioning as separate individuals. They operate as a single, friction-free organism. The Kurukshetra war is essentially a stress test. It's the moment of maximum pressure, the Kurukshetra singularity, where the rigid, centralized ego protocol physically collides with the flexible, distributed Dharma protocol. Under this extreme load, the empires of Kaurava and Lanka encounter a fatal failure point. Mercenaries, drafted kings, and manipulated allies will fight for a paycheck, but they will not willingly sacrifice their lives to sustain one man's ego. The outgunned exiles survive this exact same pressure because their nodes are bound by Shuddha Bhakti, pure devotion. Every individual operates with a collective purpose, meaning the entire network absorbs the shock together. Loyalty extracted through manipulation is brittle and shatters under immense stress. Loyalty freely given through mutual sacrifice scales infinitely. The word dharma often carries a weight of personal religious duty or moral conduct. In the architecture of these epics, dharma functions as a blueprint for systemic structural integrity. The Mahabharata and Ramayana act as highly sophisticated socio-political warnings. They map out the exact psychological catalysts, like greed and unchecked ego, that cause massive societies to implode from the inside out. True invincibility in any era isn't achieved by hoarding the most resources or rigging the game. It is achieved by the willingness of individuals to sacrifice their own ambition for the permanent stability of the whole.